At the beginning of this project, I thought that it was going to be pretty straightforward for me, because my philosophy in life is that if you want to be happy, you have to look within yourself. And the quote by Wayne Dyer at the beginning of the film, that people are looking for it, they're searching for it in other things, but happiness is within you. At the start of this project, that was sort of what I thought. I thought, if I want to find happiness, I have to look within inside me. But by the end, I wasn't so sure. After talking to people and listening to what they had to say, I actually learned something. And the something that I learned was that a rich life in the future, for me, I define that as having a fulfilling life. When you look back on it, you can say, I was happy. And that's the philosophy by Aristotle. Aristotle says in Nicomedean Ethics, one swallow does not make a spring. Just means that there's a good thing, maybe in a dark time, but really, the whole spring, all the elements of spring have to be there for it to truly be spring. And that was, that's important to me, because I want to, at the end of my life, be able to look back at it and, say that I was happy, that, I had a rich life, I had a fulfilling life. And what does that mean to me? After listening to everyone, I realized that happiness doesn't necessarily just mean that you are content with your surroundings. And I think Mrs. Stott put it best in saying that as you grow older, you start to realize that, it's not about finding happiness. You start to find satisfaction in content, and that the things that are going to bring you fulfillment is when you realize that content is a good thing, that stability is a good thing. And so my rich life for the future would have to be being stable financially, having people around me and surrounding myself with people that I love and that I care for and that love and care for me, because that's what's going to be important to me. People are so important in your life. The people shape you into who you are. In the future, I want to be able to look at my life and say that I had people around me all the time that I loved and cared for me, and the people that, along the way that I met and didn't have the best interactions with, that I learned from that, and I moved on from that and was able to still take something from the experience. Because learning plays a huge part in what I see for my future. I don't want to just live my life in one career and, just doing that for the rest of my life. I see myself not changing my mind, but changing what's going to fulfill me. It's not going to be the one thing for the rest of my life, because doing one thing for the rest of your life, you may enjoy it at first, but you may change your mind later on, It's not necessarily like Mr. Pagliuca. He said he went in going into business, and it was just something that he could do, and he was going to find out what he was going to do later. And I think that has some merit to it. It's not necessarily that, like, if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to fail and you're going to have to find happiness in other ways. But I feel like that having the flexibility to change what you're going to do. I'm going into college undecided. I have no major, and the reason for that is because I originally wanted to go into computer science, because I realized I love computers, I love working with computers, and that was something that I wanted to pursue in the future. But after learning more about more majors and more opportunities, I realized that there was something that was more interesting to me. And that's cognitive science. And what cognitive science is it's marrying the idea of humans and all of their complexities and mixing it with science. And that was something that was very interesting to me. Learning about cognitive science, I realized that was probably something that I was going to want to pursue in college. I still have to be able to change my mind and be able to do whatever I want, because that's what's going to be really important, is being able to have flexibility and still maintain some of the things that I want to have a rich and fulfilling life in. So my whole plan for the future is to be able to look and see if my decisions are going to impact my happiness and my richness in life later on. Like, I'm not a huge fan of planning so far ahead and saying, this is how things are going to go and it's going to work this way. I'm more a fan of saying, okay, is this decision going to help me later on? And what is like my net happiness? And that sounds to me like utilitarian, because they're all about the net happiness. And there's different branches, and one of the branches specifically states that utilitarians that want their net happiness, they want their total happiness. They take into account everybody's pleasure in the scenario, and they pick the outcome that will benefit the most people that it can. The only problem is it's very mathematical and not flexible at all. However, I do believe in some of the things, like making sure that the outcome is the best that it can be. Something else that I want to bring up is that Aristotle has a quote that says, "Happiness requires external goods, for it is impossible, or at least not easy, to play a noble part without the necessary equipment. For noble actions require instruments for their performance, such as friends or wealth." Aristotle in his quote is challenging the idea that you can find happiness within you, but you can't do it alone. You have to have the proper necessary base things so that you can build on top of that and create your own happiness. You can't create your own happiness if you're alone and you're feeling down. I've spent so much time searching for happiness, finding happiness, but happiness seems like this big, grand thing. But it's just that finding happiness is so difficult, and it looks so big, because you want to find happiness, you want to be happy all the time, you want to find joy in everything. And what I've started to spend my time doing, and it's very, very simple, is I've spent my time trying not to be sad. A lot of the times everybody's searching for it in themselves, and we saw some of the teenagers were looking for it in themselves, and especially Mr. Pagliuco, he talked about finding happiness within you. And I think that these two ideas, finding happiness within you and trying to focus on making you better and improving you before you can improve the world around you, and then also being able to, have friends and have children that will love you and you care for. Being able to take those two ideas and put them together, I think, is what I want for my rich life. I want to be able to take the idea of finding happiness within me and finding fulfillment within myself, and complement that idea with finding wealth and richness in the people around me and in the world around me. Because once you do that, you're going to have the necessary instruments to build off of and have that complete happy life, and be able to look back and say, okay, I did all of the things that I could to get to this happiness. This marrying of two ideas is not the first time that we've seen this in history. I mentioned this during the individualism versus collectivism debate, and that was that we have these two ideas, and we've been fighting in history, should we value the individual, should we value the collective? And in the end, and in today, what we're starting to do is value both. We spend so much time looking at the radicals. We look at, this radical idea of, an individual society, and we looked at this radical idea of a communist collective society. But in the end, if we want to progress the human race, we have to start meeting in the middle. And that was seen in individualism versus collectivism, and how throughout history, we have these different eras, and now we're in an era, the technology era, we're trying to better humanity, but still giving every individual person their own value in the society. We can apply the same logic to our future and ourselves, and taking these ideas of combining the external and the internal and putting them together, making something that will ultimately find us happiness.